Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. My name is Kassandra and I'm going to guide you through this yoga class specifically designed to help you improve your anterior pelvic tilt, sometimes commonly referred to as sway back. This is something that I personally have. This is something I've struggled with my entire life. I remember being as young as 8 or 9 years old and someone pointing out that I had anterior pelvic tilt and a sway back. It got really bad in my teens before I started really learning about my body and understanding what I needed to do to help correct it. It has improved a lot since then. However, I want to be super honest and clear. I still have anterior pelvic tilt, so I'll stand up and just show you. If I'm not aware of my posture, this is how my body naturally wants to rest. There's a tilt in my pelvis, my bum goes back, there's a big curve in my lower back, and it kind of gives like a little pooch, like my stomach sticks forward. So I always, even today, even though I practice yoga every day and I know all the things that you have to do for anterior pelvic tilt, my anatomy is my anatomy and I've made improvements, but I haven't completely cured it. So I don't want you to think that if you just do this class, all of your problems are magically going to go away. I hope it will help you and it will certainly help alleviate any pain or discomfort that can often accompany anterior pelvic tilt, but I'm not selling you some like magic pill, okay? I just want to be super honest. So even though I still have an anterior pelvic tilt in my teens, it was much worse. And now I have the strength and the awareness to be able to bring my body back into proper posture and alignment. So that's really what I want from you in this class. What we're going to be focusing on primarily is strengthening our abdominals, strengthening our glutes, and then stretching out our hip flexors and stretching out our lower back. All super important components when it comes to having proper posture and alleviating anterior pelvic tilt. Okay, those are all like the context and the disclaimers that I wanted to give you. No props required. This works for all levels, and we're going to start lying down on our backs. This is really where the important work begins. You want to be able to have the entire length of your spine in contact with the floor. So if you were to bring your arms up overhead and just kind of relax, if you have sway back, you'll notice that naturally your lower back wants to lift up and off the ground. I want you to push your lower back down into the mat. Notice how this makes you tuck your hips a little bit, and then just keep pushing that down and reach your arms out. Little cactus shape here. With your arms, push into your shoulders and just take a few breaths. Keep your feet flat to the floor. Hip width distance apart is fine. And I want you to inhale through your nose and send that breath all the way into your belly. And as you exhale, press your belly button down towards the mat and keep that connection of your lower back in contact with the floor. This is really step one. This is how we begin to build the awareness. And then all you're going to do is straighten your right leg without changing anything. So notice already, did your lower back pop off of the mat? Push it back down. Flex into your right foot, push out into the right heel. Keep your lower back pressing down. And can you hover and lift your right foot and heel just a few inches off the floor? This will make you engage your lower belly and abdominals. Strengthen through your core, keep pushing your lower back into the mat, and then bend your right knee, bring that foot back in, and we'll switch sides. So lengthen and extend out through your left leg. You might notice one side feels a little harder to do than the other. Close that gap, draw the lower belly down and in, and then maybe just lift and hover that left foot a few inches off the floor. Slow, steady breaths. Keep pushing into your shoulders and into your arms. And go ahead and bend the knees. So both knees are bent, feet flat on the floor. You can just rest your arms by your sides, palms facing up. We're going to come into a bridge pose, Setu Bandha Sarvangasana. You're going to push your feet into the floor and squeeze through your glutes as you lift your hips up. Super important here, think of lengthening your tailbone, stretching out of your lower back. Push your heels into the floor and drag them back towards your shoulders. Activate through your glutes and through your hamstrings here. And try not to sway and curl. Think of eliminating that pelvic tilt. And you might not be able to lift your hips up as high as they can go while keeping the integrity through your hips and through your lower back. So if I forget about my lower back, I can lift my hips up really high, but I have too much curve here, so I need to lower it down. Take one more full deep breath here. And slowly curl down inch by inch. Let's bring our hands behind the back of the head just so you can support yourself here. And we're gonna inhale, lift head and shoulders off the floor. Keep your lower back on the mat. You're gonna stay lifted, and all you're going to do is lift your right foot up. Keep that knee bent at a 90-degree angle. And exhale, set it back down. Stay on the right side, inhale. Right leg up, keep the knee bent. Exhale, back to the mat. Twice more. Inhale, lift up higher. Exhale, set it down. Last one. Inhale. Keep your lower back flat to the floor. And release. Switch sides. Inhale, left leg up at a 90-degree angle. And lower back down with control. 3 more. Pull the lower belly in, last one, lifting up and lowering down. Stretch your legs out in front of you, curl head and shoulders up a little higher, and release. Stretch your arms up overhead. Forget about your low back for a second here, just stretch everything out. And getting into our hip flexors, pull your right thigh in towards your belly, keep your left leg straight. So just getting a nice stretch through the front of your left thigh. Relax your shoulders away from your ears. And let's carry this over into a twist. Really simple. Just cross your right thigh over your body towards the left and reach your right arm out to the side. So any kind of twist is going to be really beneficial for stretching out your lower back, especially if your kind of anterior pelvic tilt causes pain and discomfort. It doesn't always cause pain. Some people have no negative symptoms with this type of posture, but it is still really nice to stretch out your lower back. And release. Second side, pull your left thigh in towards your belly, lengthen out through that right leg. Stretch your right leg out a little further, and we'll take a twist. So left thigh crosses over towards the right side of your mat. Stretch your left arm out. So keep your collarbones facing up and try to stack your left hip over your right one. And releasing back. Let's do one last little reclined ab exercise. Bend your knees, feet flat to the floor. Bring your hands behind the back of your head again, and you're going to lift and curl head and shoulders up. This time I want you to bring your right knee in as close as you can. As you twist to the right, see if you can bring your left elbow in contact with the inside of your right knee. And I want you to push your arm into your knee and feel your knee push into your elbow. Doing this will help you really activate through those abdominals. Shaking is normal. Keep squeezing, 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 pushing, pushing, pushing. Curl and lift up higher. And release. Set back down. And second side, lift up. Twist to the left. Bring that left knee in and see if you can make contact with your elbow and your knee and push both in towards each other. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Stay lifted up tall. Doesn't take long to feel this one. And release. Great job. Let's lift up on hands and knees, tabletop pose. So palms under your shoulders, knees underneath your hips. And we're going to do cat and cow, mainly to build awareness. So if you have anterior pelvic tilt, you'll notice that when you do this cow face pose or this cow pose, there's a lot of motion in the lower back and not always as much in the upper or mid back. So you might need to lessen the degree of the tilt here to instead favor an opening through the heart and through the chest. So breathing in here, and then as you exhale, reverse that motion and really feel this action of scooping the tailbone under and lengthening, stretching through your lower back. A few more like this. So inhale, maybe not going quite as intensely through your lower back, and exhale. 2 more here. Go at your own breath. Last one. Squeezing your shoulder blades behind you. And exhale. Coming back through to neutral, tabletop pose. If you have sway back and you're not aware of it, often our neutral tabletop pose includes dropping the belly. Pull your lower belly in, flatten as if you were trying to balance a little teacup on your lower back, and we're going to lift our right heel up towards the sky with the knee bent. Once more, try to keep the integrity through your lower back, and all you're going to do is pulse that heel up. I'm not lifting it up very high. They're tiny little pulses, just a couple inches to start activating and targeting through our glutes, through our hamstrings. Let's take 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Bring your knee back in and then open it out to the side like a little fire hydrant pose. Knee is bent at a 90-degree angle and lower down. Keep both elbows straight. Squeeze and lift. And lower. 3 more. Inhale up. Exhale down. Inhale up. You'll feel this in your left glute. Down. Last one. Inhale, lift. Exhale to release. Once more here, go ahead and lift your right knee up, straighten your right leg, and then see if you can tap the toes down to the floor, and then lift them back up. 4 more. Tap down, squeeze and lift. Tap down, lift up. 2 more. Lift and let that foot come down to the mat. Go ahead and lift on up, gate pose. Find your alignment here. Tailbone down, lower belly in. Reach your left arm up and over. Big side body stretch. Keep rolling that left hand down until you can bring your hands back to the floor. And you're going to pivot so that you're lifting your right toes off the mat and just on your heel, and start to shift your hips back, maybe resting your hips over onto your heel as you fold. I'm getting a nice hamstring stretch here. Stretching our hamstrings is also a wonderful way to release tension out of our lower backs. And let's lift back up, tabletop stance. We'll repeat this sequence on the second side. Hands under your shoulders, knees under your hips. Find the integrity through your lower back, firm up through your core, and try to lift that left heel up as if you were going to stamp the ceiling with that foot. Just make tiny little pulses. Try to keep your lower belly pulling in. And I know for me personally, this side is always a lot harder. I find I'm more tempted to kind of collapse and lose my form. For you, the other side might have been more challenging. Just keep making those little adjustments for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And drop that knee down, open it out to the side at hip height and lower. 4 more. No sway back, no bent elbows. 2 more. Lift and lower. Lift and lower. This time lift it up, straighten the leg, and drop the left toes out to the side, and we're gonna pick it up with a straight leg. Up and down, up, down. 3 more. Last one, up and down, and go ahead and walk your hands back into your gate pose. Tailbone under, shoulders over your hips, right arm stretches up and over. Hopefully you're feeling this through your glutes. I know I certainly am. And keep rotating that right hand down so you can bring your palms back to the mat. You can lift your left toes off the floor as you sink your hips back towards your right heel. Stretch your arms out in front of you as you fold. Big hamstring stretch here. And lift your hips off of your heel, come back, tabletop pose. Let's step our right foot forward between our hands to the top of the mat and start with this low lunge form with your fingertips on the floor. So really just stretching through the front of your left thigh, rolling your shoulders down and away from your ears. And to further release also into our lower back, we're going to add a little simple twist here. So you can flatten your left hand to the mat, right hand to your right thigh, and just push the thigh away from you as you roll that right shoulder back and twist to the right. And looking down to the floor, here's where it gets really important. You're going to press to lift up into the traditional variation of Anjaneyasana, your low lunge. When we have anterior pelvic tilt, the tendency is to do this. I know for me, it's actually quite comfortable, but it only serves to make my sway back worse. I have to lift myself up. I have to work on lengthening my tailbone down, drawing my lower belly in, lifting the rib cage up, and then finding the length and maintaining this integrity so that even if I do start to press my hips forward and down, I'm not just letting all of the weight collapse to my lower back. So it's really less about doing specific poses and moves that help to work on this type of posture. It's really more so about building the awareness so that no matter what you're doing, no matter what the sport or physical activity is, you're able to do it in a way that will help and not hinder and make your pelvic tilt worse. So another big breath in here. And we're going to find our downward facing dog. Plant your palms, tuck the back toes under, and step that right foot back. Hip width distance apart. Any movements here and adjustments that feel good. Come forward into plank pose, holding here. Again, same thing. Lengthen your tailbone towards your heels. Draw the lower belly in. Reach the crown of your head forward. Tap your knees down and lift them up. Twice more. Tap down, lift up, tap down, lift up, and lower to your belly. Cobra. Back bends are super important to do properly. Again, it's easy to just let your lower back take the brunt of this. I want you to instead push your pubic bone into the floor, push the tops of your feet into the mat, and only come up as high as you can without letting your hips come up and all of this pressure accumulate. So really, you might not be going up very high at all. Think of focusing on your mid back and upper back more than anything else. And let's release, press back, easy child's pose. Rest your hips on your heels. And bring your forehead down to the mat. 3 deep breaths here. And you can bring your hands back behind you, grab a hold of your heels. We're going to do rabbit pose, awesome pose to stretch out the lower back. You're just going to lift your hips up as high as they can go while still holding on to your heels. So we're looking to feel just a nice stretch and decompression along the spine. Not a lot of weight on the top of your head. It's almost hovering. Most of my weight is in my knees and my shins. And release, tabletop pose. Let's repeat this on the other side. So we're going to find our low lunge first by keeping the hands down. So my knee is over my ankle and I'm just up on my fingertips here, trying to stretch out through my right hip flexors. And we can add our twist. So right hand goes flat to the floor, left hand to your left thigh, really pushing and rotating away here. Still letting gravity pull your hips down. Truly, if I had to pick a pose for anterior pelvic tilt, it would be a low lunge, properly done. And facing forward, let's find the full variation of Anjaneyasana this time. So you're lifting yourself up, find the integrity first, lengthen tailbone down, draw the lower belly in, lift and stretch out of your lower back as you extend and reach through your arms, and maintain this alignment even if you choose to press your hips forward and down to stretch further along your right hip flexors. So forget about the back bend for now in this pose. Just keep your spine nice and straight. You should feel like you're working hard to maintain this. And we'll bring our hands down, downward facing dog, step the left foot back, feet are hip width distance apart, palms are shoulder width distance apart. Stretching everything out. And coming forward into plank pose, lengthen tailbone down, no sway back here. And you're going to tap the knees down and lift them back up. Tap down, lift up, one more, tap and lift and lower down. Tiny little cobra pose. Think of pushing your hip bones, pushing your pubic bones into the floor and lifting out of your lower back. I'm not coming up very high. You can squeeze a little bit through your glutes. And let's release, press back into child's pose. Keep your knees fairly close to each other. And you can come into rabbit pose by reaching your hands back towards your heels and lifting your hips off of those heels to stretch everything out along your back. Sending your heels down. Let's find downward dog again. We're going to use this to transition. So from your downward facing dog, it might feel good just to stretch your right leg up towards the sky, maybe bend your right knee, open up your hip, and we're going to find a high lunge this time. So right foot goes between the hands to the top of the mat. Feet are hip width distance apart as you lift on up. This is the pose that I probably see the most common issues with if you have anterior pelvic tilt. When you look at pictures of this pose, people are doing it with their back leg straight. That works for a lot of people. As you can tell, doesn't work for me. There's a huge crease, my belly is out, it just does not work. Every time I do high lunge, the back knee has to be bent. I have to bend into my back knee to keep my hips directly under my shoulders, tailbone lengthening down, drawing the lower belly in, and finding the lift from there. And let's challenge ourselves a little further by bending the elbows at 90-degree angles and see if you can find a tiny little back bend, primarily focusing on your upper and mid back. So notice the tendency to let the parts of our spine that's already flexible do all of the work for us. Instead, focus on those areas that are a little trickier. And facing forward again, we're just going to fold forward at the top of the mat so you can bring your fingertips out. Just step that left foot. Feet are at least hip-width distance apart. Ragdoll pose. Really stretch out your lower back here. Let your knees bend as much as you need them to. No tension in your facial muscles or in your neck. And let's step back to downward dog so we can find that same pose on the other side. Walking your feet back. This time the left leg will stretch up towards the sky. Bend your left knee, open up your hip. And we can step that foot forward. Again, hip width distance apart. Not one foot in front of the other, and lift on up. Add a little bend into your back knee so that you can position your pelvis where you need it with proper alignment. This should feel like a core strengthening pose. My abdominals are really working to hold me here. And from here, then I'm lifting. And over time, sometimes we are able to kind of straighten that back leg. But I know for me, for my body, it's better if I just keep it slightly bent at least. You can bend your elbows at 90-degree angles and find a tiny little heart opener. That's why I often like to say heart opener as opposed to back bend, because for those of us with sway back, it's kind of easy to back bend, but not really do it properly. So focus on your chest instead. Coming back through to center, fold forward at the top of the mat, ragdoll fold. Letting it go, just swaying a little side to side. Our last downward facing dog. Step your feet back. Come forward into plank pose. Lower all the way down to your belly and just press back into an easy child's pose, balasana. This time right away, have your arms back behind you, palms facing up. Slowing everything down. And you can lift yourself up just to come down onto your back again. One of my favorite little movements to do are these tiny little pelvic tilts and more like pelvic traction. So with your feet hip width distance apart, flat to the floor, you're going to bring your hands kind of on the upper parts of your thighs. And I want you to push your hands into your thighs. And at the same time, see if you can lengthen and get your lower back closer to the mat. Your lower back will be lifted off the floor, and that's fine. But see if you can get a nice stretch through your lower back. Now release the bracing of your thighs, push your lower back into the floor and curl through your hips. So more like a posterior pelvic tilt. And then once more, come back to neutral pelvis, push your hands into your thighs. And release, posterior pelvic tilt, push your lower back into the floor. Slightly curling tailbone up. And come back to neutral. Let's take a little twist. Both hips can move over towards the right, and you can just drop your legs over to the left. My right thigh is over my left one. Right arm can stretch out to the side. And lifting the knees up, let's switch sides. Your hips move to the left, your thighs drop to the right. Left arm reaches out. Try to keep your left shoulder blade in contact with the floor. Coming back through to center, knees in towards your belly, give it a big squeeze. So poses like Shavasana can unfortunately exacerbate anterior pelvic tilt, and for some people it can be really uncomfortable and painful in your lower back, because when we straighten our legs, for a lot of us, our lower back pops off the mat. So an alternative would be to just have your feet wide and let your knees fall in towards each other. That way you can keep your pelvis in a neutral position. Closing your eyes. Give yourself a few minutes here. We won't be here too long. See if you can use this time to really feel into this space of your body and notice what might feel different, what the effects of your practice are. About one more minute here. Breathe deeply. Start to wake yourself up again. Little movements. We can just roll over to one side, cradling your head in your arm. Take a moment here. You can ease into a seated position, however is comfortable to you. And join your hands together at your heart. We'll close by chanting Om one time together. Breathe in to chant. Om. Thank you so much, everyone, for doing this yoga class for anterior pelvic tilt. So I talked a lot in this class. I know I talked more than I normally do in my other lessons. It's just, I have so much information to give on this. I hope it was helpful, that you learned something, that a few things clicked into place. Really, the most important thing, the biggest takeaway for this class is to be very aware of your body anytime you get on your mat to do any kind of yoga with any teacher. Remember the principles: lengthening tailbone down, drawing the belly in. And this is also something you want to remind yourself throughout the day. I do posture checks. I feel like I do them every couple of minutes. Whenever I'm standing, I'm always trying to remind myself to move my body out of that default sway back position. So more awareness on our mat and off the mat. That's really the key to bringing some ease and alleviating the often negative symptoms that accompany lordosis or sway back or anterior pelvic tilt. If you'd like more of these classes, I still have like so many other things that I can talk about on this subject. Leave me a comment. Maybe I'll do some more here on my channel. Please subscribe, and hopefully you'll practice again with me very soon.